If you want to see your name at the beginning of all of our videos, as well as see exclusive content here on the homestead, please feel free to join our Patreon. Memberships start off at just $1 a month. And as always, thank you for your support. I found my first silver fox baby out of the nest, and it is time. It is time to trade out this nest box for one that they can get in and out of accessibly so that they can stay warm when they want and explore the cage other times. So I'm going to try this one right here. I'm going to fill it with some sawdust down here, some hay, so they have a nice little warm place to go, and they can get in and out pretty easy. The reason why I might switch out a nest box is the babies have a harder time getting in and out of this one, and this mitigates the risk of them getting too cold on the wire. If this was summertime, I would just take the baby's nest box out completely and let them figure it out, but we're still pretty cold in the winter here, and I want to give them a chance to kind of acclimate more to the weather that we're having. So this is a good in-between option. So these silver fox babies are just over 2 weeks of age. So there are a lot of things that I cannot say quite yet because they are very young, but there are a few things that you can see. At this age, I should be able to see any blatant off-white marks, so if they had a star or a stripe on their face, or since their eyes are starting to open, anything that would be weird with their eyes. But beyond that, I really can't tell type because they are so young. I will start posing them around 4 weeks of age. And I will make some notes on my lines as something extreme or something to look out after, but they can change so much. And I can't even really begin to guess till about 8 weeks. What I really look for at this age is to see who my big babies are and my runts are. Is somebody vastly ahead? Is somebody behind? But at this age, it's just more about making sure they're getting their weights on and just starting to work with them, getting used to being handled. This is the chunk out of the litter, and one I'm very excited to see grow out. And this one is the smallest out of the litter. There is a notable difference in size, but it's not a massive difference. As they start to get older, I'll start pointing out some things that I'm going to look for, and if something pops up that would be a disqualification or a problem within the lines. Alright, I got mom here feeding the babies in the morning, and she does not look too happy with it. But when we look at babies coming out of the nest box, normally their feet are large enough to where the wire isn't a problem. Understanding that this wire is the appropriate wire, being a 1/2 inch by 1 inch, their feet are already big enough to where it does not fall through those holes. I had another person who was worried about wire in general and rabbits getting their feet caught. In all of the time that I have raised rabbits, I have never had a foot injury from them getting it caught in the wire. It's just not a large concern when it comes to raising rabbits as long as you have the appropriate gauge. What I get more concerned about is babies falling out of the cage if the wire isn't properly gauged with Baby Saver. So if you look in this cage, I have this urine guard, which keeps the babies from getting through on the wire. And that's especially for my mini Rex. These guys, we really don't have a problem with this unless they somehow get pulled out of the nesting box by mom when they're first born. But my mini Rex can slip through the larger holes in the wire up until about 3 weeks of age. So it's important to have those guards and those safeties on just to ensure that the babies don't get out of the cage, get too cold, and freeze. So that's more of a concern than the wire is on the bottom of the cage. Another problem that I worry about with babies is them getting caught behind things. So I've seen mamas who they will squish babies behind nesting boxes because there's no safeguards for that. So for instance, if a baby gets behind this nest box right here, it cannot go back any further because I have safeties that don't allow it to get pushed back. And the same is true about the feeders. The feeders can't move to squish the babies if they were to get back there. Having babies at this age is all about mitigating risks, because just like any babies that are leaving the nest, they are spicy and they're just learning how things work. So yes, in order for a breeding to be successful, a rabbit has to have fall-offs. With that being said, a fall-off looks different for every rabbit. I have some that are extremely dramatic and will literally fall off, roll over to the other side of the cage. And then I have others that kind of like weirdly fall sideways and it doesn't really look like much. The biggest thing is you want to make sure that there is a tie or a connection between the buck and doe as the deed is being done. And remember, it only takes one fall off to have a litter. But most of us who are breeding rabbits look for at least 3 fall offs just to be sure. And sometimes you have to help the buck out in his positioning to make that connection between him and the doe, especially if it's a very young buck who doesn't know what they're doing. Let's talk about grow out rates when it comes to raising meat rabbits. This is the grow out chart that I use when it comes to weight by age when it comes to meat rabbits. As you can see, we have good and we have excellent. Anything that would fall below good would just be subpar. That being said, that is focused mostly on your commercial type rabbits that are more common, such as Californians and New Zealand's, and there could be a bit of a shift when it comes to less common commercial animals that might be slightly slower growers. With that being said, you always want to push towards that higher standard of faster growth. And that is because at the end of the day, the faster these things grow out with the least amount of food possible, the better your feed to meat ratios comparative to price is going to be. My silver foxes normally hit 5 pounds around 10 to 12 weeks. My Vanessa lines grow slower than my other lines, but they all reach a senior weight at about the same time. So as a whole, it's equivalent, it's just that faster bit in the beginning. Now the question is what do you want to do with this information? If you're willing to have slower growers and that's not really a big issue to you, then, disregard what I'm saying. But my goal is to have the fastest growers possible. I want a 5-pound meat rabbit at 8 weeks when they are weaned, and I want the least amount of turnaround possible to put meat into my freezer. So my goal is to slowly work towards that breeding my lines. So when I am butchering out my animals, I am going to keep the largest out of my litter for the future generation that has the best type. I want to have the problem of not being able to show seniors because they are overweight compared to them being underweight on a table. So if I had animals that weren't within a good grow range and it was a genetic issue in my lines, I would get new lines. Again, that's what I prefer to do. You don't have to do that. And that little chart at the beginning of the video is such a helpful little tool. I have it pinned to my office when I am weighing my babies. So currently I'm feeding Mana Pro Grow, so Mana Pro but the green bag. And I have been feeding that for the longest time. It's a good quality for what it is, but it's also a bit pricey. And I like it because it really grows out my kits nice and it does really well with a milking doe. And it's served me well over the past few years, but it's not enough. Now, if I were just growing meat rabbits for the freezer, it would be perfect, but I also show rabbits, and it's not finishing off my rabbits the way I want it to. I want a little more quality to the coat and a bit better build on the top line faster. So basically, my rabbits are filling in nicely, but I want better filling in on this area right here when they hit around 12 to 16 weeks. So this would be like after butcher. So basically from the time frame that they are juniors into seniors, so 4 months into about 6 months. So for silver foxes, that would be into our intermediate phase. I need them to have a little better muscling on that top area. And Mana Pro is good for what it is, but I finally have a dealer for a different feed that I've been wanting to try for a very long time. So I'm going to try it out to see if I can get better results as I'm growing the kits out past butcher. So yeah, Mana Pro Grow in short, it's pretty good. Great for meat rabbits, just not great for finishing out show rabbits. I'm going to show my ugly face here for a second. This isn't me saying Mana Pro is bad or that I'm extremely disappointed in it. I'm being very nitpicky, like I am with everything rabbits. And right now, one of the biggest mentions at show for my junior and intermediate animals is that they need more filling in on the top line. And my senior animals have that. Now, some of that is just how my lines fill in, some of that is age, but some of that could be conditioning. And right now I'm using supplements to kind of aid in filling in that area. I'll probably still continue to feed grow on top of what I'm going to be getting, but use it as a supplement. But I don't know yet. But something that's super important when it comes to rabbits is consistency. And we've been having a huge supply and demand issue, and there have been times where I can't feed my regular feed, and that does affect my rabbits' quality, or at least their show quality, because they don't do good on some feeds or they do good on others. So again, I'm being very nitpicky. One of the most complex parts of raising rabbits is barn management. And that's because there's just such a wide scope that goes into managing a rabbit breeding program. And the larger your breeding program gets, the more organized you're going to want to be. Because at the end of the day, the more organized you are, the easier it's going to be for you. When it comes to my rabbits, I have everything scheduled and planned out. For instance, Mondays are my breeding days. It means my nest box normally go in on a Sunday. If my rabbits were on time, in theory, they would have babies on Thursdays, but they normally hold out on me till about day 32 to 33. So they have babies over the weekend. I do monthly health checks in which I go over the rabbits' general health, their weight, their nail trims. I normally do those on Wednesdays. And when it comes to pulling trays and pans in my rabbitry, I just go row by row once a day to take care of it. So the row I'm currently facing the cameras towards gets done on Monday. The row below it gets done on Tuesday. The row below it gets done on Wednesday. It's just a part of my daily tasks that need to get done. But barn management goes beyond just simple scheduling of things that need to get done. Barn management also applies to the strategical growth of kits. Which rabbits are you going to pair together to get the best possible outcome? What are your plans to get to the goals you want to get to? How many rabbits do you need to get to those goals? How do you move your rabbitry forward from having Frankenstein and part rabbits to rabbits that have just generally good type overall? And they check all of the boxes. There's so much that needs to be done in a breeding program to be successful, especially if you are a show barn. But even if you are just breeding for simple meat, there are questions that you need to ask and answer for yourself. I have multiple breeds, so I have multiple goals. For my mini Rex, I have my blue-eyed white project. And then in my rabbitry, I am just working on overall height to depth ratio. Their shoulders are great. I really don't need to worry about that. Their fur density is amazing. For my silver foxes, I'm just working on fur type. I need fur that's going to be long and has nice grip to it. My type is really good and my overall grow outs are great. But that fur is just getting at me. And then for my standard Rex, I'm just playing with the chinchilla color. I want a chinchilla colored standard Rex that has amazing type, size, and grow out. So basically I'm just working on everything. But it's a fun project. Now I just have to figure out how I'm going to get there and what generally needs to get done to get me to my goals. They are ear tattoos. All of my rabbits over a certain age have them for identification purposes, and it is a requirement to be shown. I only have 2 colors in my barn. I have black and I have blue, and I just kind of bounce back and forth for color. It doesn't really matter to me. But my tattoos have specific meanings dependent on if they are used for a breeder versus if they are used for meat. But I tattoo anything in my barn that is over 8 weeks old, and every once in a while I do have to touch up tattoos. I always get asked if the tattooing process is painful, and no, we use a numbing spray. It's more annoying than anything. I've gotten my fingers with that tattoo pen a million times, and it really doesn't hurt. And it's nothing compared to the piece I have on my shin. Like, that tattoo hurt. But this doesn't really bother the rabbit at all. In fact, they normally sleep through the process. I keep seeing ick videos with that really fun voice filter. I don't have that voice filter yet, but I really wanted to do my icks when it comes to the rabbit community.
And just as a disclaimer, I love the rabbit community as a whole. There are just some things that really, really irritate me. So my first ick is when people are rude to ARBA judges. Like, why are you being rude to a person in general who's just doing their job and giving their opinion? You don't have to agree with them, but why are you rude? Like, it gets on my nerves so much. Like, they're human and they are taking their time to be at a show just like you are. Just be nice to people, please. My next ick is people who just got into rabbits within the past year or so and all of a sudden they're an expert. Like, you can learn a lot in a year, don't get me wrong. But if you were asking very basic questions 3 months ago, and now you are giving very wrong information to people with a very bad opinion, I don't like it. Like, we had somebody on a Facebook Meet Rabbit group that are like, don't save the babies. Let natural selection take its course. There's nothing you can do to save them anyway, and you shouldn't be touching them for the first 2 weeks. Like, Karen. First of all, I'm going to touch my babies to make sure I don't have anything dead in the nest box. And second of all, if I have a chance to save my babies, I will. If that means warming them up or giving them a slight bit of extra formula, then I'm gonna do it. Fight me! My third ick is people who are too lazy to fill out pedigrees. And I'm not talking about people who, like, just got their rabbits. I'm talking about people who have had their lines for years and they're just too lazy to fill out the information. Like, it'll say the animal's name and their color and that's it. Like, you're not even gonna give me weights or, like, date of birth. Like, I get it if you don't do tattoos and they don't have tattoos, like, totally understandable. But give me more. Like, it's not truly pedigreed if you're just being lazy. So don't advertise it as pedigreed. Color does not equate to pedigree. Fill out everything, please. Makes me want to either scream or cry, and I'm not sure which. And my last ick has nothing to necessarily do with people and everything to do with a couple of rabbits I have. Why are y'all peeing in your food? Like, it didn't matter if it was a J feeder or a bowl. I had a couple of rabbits that would just pee in their food dish no matter what I did. So it just turned into supervised feeds before I culled them out. Thankfully, I don't have any bowl peers right now, but when I did, it was so gross. You want to say hi or should I talk? Okay. This is Ricardo. He's also known as Pickle Rick here. He's not really a secret. I talk about him a good bit. He is my very moody, perpetual toddler. And he is bad. He's so bad. You're so bad. You know that? You're a bad boy. Yes, you are. Yeah. He's my morning coffee buddy. Every time he sees me sit down, he comes to just annoy and harass me, and I love it. He is a Milligold, and just overall just a really good boy when he wants to be. He knows a lot of words. He doesn't really say much on camera. But at night, his favorite thing is to sit and call the dogs and then pretend he didn't call the dogs. And then he laughs in a demon voice. And at 3 in the morning, he really loves to sit on his perch in that demon voice and tell you to get out of your own house. Kisses? You want a kiss? No? Then why are you saying kisses? He's also working on flight training. I always say this. Eventually I will get him flight trained, and eventually he will fly over the house. But for now, he's just a perpetually angry velociraptor. We also have a cockatoo. Her name is Samantha, but she's not mine. She's my husband's. And she does not like me. Unless I have treats. Hi. Are you gonna be nice today? This is Strawberry. He's probably the closest you're going to find in my barn to perfection, being that he is just a ball. He has the best fur density. He is as round this way as he is tall, and he is just smooth all over. So here's kind of a side view profile for you. And when we go into the back and get him posed up, let's see here. As you can see, he is just a ball. It's just round smoothness and just very, very round. And he's done really well for us on the show table. His only problem is that he is overweight for standard. Not by much anymore, but enough to where it still would get us DQ'd. And he is just the fattest boy. But he creates some beautiful, beautiful babies. And he is just so sweet. He's my daughter's showbuck, so he kind of has to be. I can definitely elaborate a bit on this. So the rabbits that I normally show are of compact or commercial type. And in order for them to show appropriate type for judging, they have to sit a certain way. Because when the rabbit's moving around, it's very hard to judge structure in these type of rabbits. Now, if you have a running type rabbit, it's a bit easier. So the way you want these guys posed is their front feet under their eyes and their hind feet in line with their hips. And that gives them the appropriate structure of posing to judge certain attributes that the rabbit has. So for instance, with this little doe right here, this is Velma. I can't really tell you much of anything as she's moving around, even when she's sitting still. She just kind of looks like a tube sock when she's moving around. And for this breed, you want them to basically look like a ball. Even when she's posed up here, her feet aren't under her eyes, her feet aren't under the hips, and it just gives us a very flat appearance. I can't tell you what her shoulder length looks like in comparison to the rest of her body. I can't tell you where her high point is, and I can't really see the definition in the loin. I can't tell you if she has a round, smooth ball appearance. But when we pose her up appropriately for a compact rabbit, we see that she has a really nice shoulder up into a decent high point, rounded out into a beautiful loin. I can also see that she is as tall as she is wide and just has this beautiful structure. But again, if I let her move about, no longer posed, automatically I lose that kind of conformation, and I can again not tell her roundness compared to the rest of her body. Basically, posing them up correctly just make sure that they are structurally sound and have correct type to the standard of perfection. So I have quite a few videos on my YouTube channel when it comes to the process of tattooing my rabbits, and that's over on the Itty Bitty Homestead Committee. And when it comes to this here clock app, they don't really like when I show those things. So I will describe it to you and we can just all use our imaginations together. Or if you want to go see it, you're more than welcome to hop over on my YouTube. So basically what I'll do is I'll decide whether an animal is a meat rabbit or if I'm going to use them in the breeding program, and from there I'll decide what their tattoo is going to be. When I take them out for their tattoos, I get a good weight, I trim nails, and I do a general health check. And then I will take them into the house. I will disinfect their left ear with rubbing alcohol. And then I will spray it with a numbing spray. And I will let that numbing spray sit for at least a minute, normally up to 2 to 3 minutes, just to make sure it's good to go. Then I take a permanent marker and I kind of map out what I want the tattoo to look like. And then I will go and tattoo the animal. And the tattoo itself only takes a couple of minutes. While I'm doing this, the animal's normally wrapped in a towel, sleeping, and while I'm waiting for the numbing spray to take effect, I'm just doing paperwork stuff. But it's very simple, it's very easy, and overall it's not a very stressful situation for the animal. I want to try ManaPro Show so bad, and I tried ordering it from our local feed store, and it was good to go. Okay, they came in. And the company replaced the purple bag with the red bag. So they replaced the ManaPro Show with the ManaPro Pro. And I was so aggravated because the company's like, oh, we don't have this in stock, so therefore this is an equivalent purchase. Which it's not. If anyone raises rabbits, you know that they have a very finicky gut, and sometimes if you change their food too fast or you don't have a transitional feed, it can really mess with them and give them things like bloat, diarrhea, GI stasis, that kind of thing. So I would love to try Show at some point if the company would ever get its act together in giving me the right product. The biggest advice that I can give you when it comes to showing mini Rex is to understand that it is an extremely competitive breed that has a lot of people competing. Which isn't a bad thing, but it also means that if you get anything less than subpar stock being affordable, it could put you extremely far behind to a point where you're going to have to breed for many, many years before you become competitive. Get the best stock that you can afford that is as close to the SOP as you can get it. Or I've talked about it before, if you really want a specific color like this lynx right here, odds are you're going to have to get a carrier of good quality and breed to get the color instead of getting the color being less quality. So for instance, Lulu, she's very competitive type-wise as a lynx, but up against another color such as a black, a broken black, or a castor, she's probably not going to win. And that's because this color is less developed than those other colors. Again, it's a very steep competition for Mini Rex. It doesn't mean the breed isn't worth competing with. I so very much love competing with Mini Rex. I've worked so hard to get these lines to perfection. And in a lot of my colors, I still have a very long way to go. Cries in my blue-eyed white program. It just means you're going to be working a little harder than if you were to do a more uncommon breed. I don't think I have ever talked about this section when it comes to animal ethics before. So thank you so much for this. Because normally we talk about wire bottom cages and the studies behind them and why this is appropriate care when it comes to science, especially when we're talking about ethics of behavioral stress and cortisol levels. But let's talk about hoarding. Pulling up on the Mayo Clinic for the DSM-5 definition of hoarding. Hoarding disorder is a persistent difficulty discarding or parting with possessions because of perceived need to save them. A person with hoarding disorder experiences distress at the thought of getting rid of the items, excessive accumulation of items regardless of the actual value that occurs. So the thing is I don't collect these animals despite their value. That's the first thing I'm going to bring up. I will cull out anything in my barn if it is not valuable to the program. I also have a set limit of how many animals I am allowed to have. And if need be, I will go through and organize who I'm going to keep versus who I'm going to eat. You wouldn't look at a farmer for any other animal and say, oh, you have 100 cows and therefore you are hoarding if they are producing them for milk and meat. The same is true of these animals. I raise them to eat them. The showing part is just an extra bonus. In the summer, I can have up to 100 rabbits. Right now, I only have 25. So the fact that I bounced from 100 to 25 so quick already shows you that I don't have a difficulty getting rid of my animals. 2, I want to thank you so much for bringing up the fact that my animals are kept in healthy conditions. Because if their quality of life was garbage, it would be extremely hard to keep them at this body shape. Do you know how hard it is to keep them to that quality? It's hard as fuck. The amount of food, time, toys, everything that goes into raising these little suckers. Outstanding. We love it. And as always, I'm going to bring up the fact of you don't have to like the way I raise my rabbits. That's fine, that's up to you. I raise them through recommendations brought up by the top AG colleges in the United States, the world, and as well as the agricultural department. And I spend way too much time neck deep in research when it comes to different cage systems. Data and science are my friend, especially when we look at an ethical perspective when it comes to, again, behavioral factors and cortisol levels. But yeah, hoarding and farming, completely different. So because of the colors that I enjoy breeding, I do get some really interesting ones that I don't keep. So my main projects right now are in my castor program, my lynx program, my blue-eyed white program, and strawberry is a broken black buck. So I get all kinds of cool colors to include the ones I'd named, chocolates, blues, ambers, all kinds of various broken varieties of the ones I've just mentioned. I also get lilacs. Basically, I will get anything that isn't torted or shaded. I also don't really mess with ruse. But I do have otter running through my lines out of cocoa, which is why I have a lilac otter. And that's one of our main breeding bucks. That's Gigi, in case y'all were wondering. He's such a naughty, naughty boy, and I'm really hoping to breed him to Lulu next time that I go to breed her. But anyway, all of that to say, I will sell any color that I get that is showable and of good quality. I get a lot of kids who really like the blues and chocolates, and I try to produce those for 4-H. And as long as they're meeting standard and they have the chance to do really good in someone's breeding program, I am always happy to sell them. I had a beautiful Lynx Mini Rex buck that I sold last year. And then I had a chocolate doe I sold last year who got reserved grand champion at fair. And another little chocolate that got best of breed a few times at local ARBA shows. But I would love to see more people showing this color right here, this lynx, because they are absolutely gorgeous. That and this doe in particular is just a huge softie and such an easy animal to handle. And I am super excited to get some kits out of her. She's just the squishiest little thing.